What is up, my dear friends, and welcome back to another episode of Honey, I'm Home. Today, we're going to be going through some questions that you have sent in to me via my Instagram account at Tylerjoestratton. And for those of you that have been a long-time listener, thank you for being here. But today, we're going to go through some of the most commonly asked questions. There were hundreds of you, and I couldn't get to all of the questions, but a lot of these questions can be found within the Happy Heart Academy Inner Circle community. So if you'd like to join that, you can be sure to do so over on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, in the show notes below. Wherever you listen to the podcast at, the link will be in the show notes below. So now on to today's episode, where we're going to just sit back, relax, and talk a little bit about some questions that you've had and hopefully provide you with some clarity and answers so that we can continue to move ourselves forward, find more clarity, more peace, and more hope. My dear friends, what is up? Welcome back. Today is a new day. It's a new week. It's a new time together here on the Honey I'm Home podcast. And you guys have wrote into me asking some crazy good questions that I hope that I can bring some clarity to and hope that I can serve you today. This is going to be a rapid round, meaning I have not prepared my answers for this. So this is going to be right off, the top of my head on the answers that I'm going to provide to you. But I promise you that the questions that are going to be asked and answered are probably very common to the ones that you're currently dealing with now. And so I want to start off with the first question here is, what are some things to remember when you start dating again? Well, here's an idea for you. When you start to get back into the dating space once again, something that you always have to keep in mind is to keep your heart open. And this is why I think it's so important for you to begin to work on yourself during your separation season or that singleness season. So when you're going through a heartbreak, a breakup, separation, or divorce, and you're ready to almost put yourself back out there because you're tired of being alone and tired of, just doing things by yourself, and you're ready to almost put yourself back out there. One thing that I always recommend you do is to live with your heart wide open. And oftentimes this is super hard for us to do because when we go through a separation, it oftentimes causes us to want to close off our heart to other people because we've been hurt. And the way that we don't get hurt again is by keeping our heart closed. This is something that I did. I remember when I first went through some difficult, struggling separations of my own, that I just wanted to walk away from the relationship I had with myself and with others, meaning that I wanted to be with someone, but at the same time, I didn't want to be with someone because I feared of getting hurt again. And what I realized is if I protected my heart, I oftentimes felt like this would help me to protect myself from getting hurt again. But really what it protected me from was, it protected me from the very thing that I needed, which was love. You see, when you close off your heart to dating and love, you're closing off your heart to the very thing that you want. You're closing off your heart to receiving love. You can't receive with a closed fist, and you can't give with a closed fist. Same thing, you can't receive with a closed heart, and you can't give with a closed heart. What I'm asking you to do is, if you are trying to get back into the dating space again, remember that this is a new person, that they are not your ex, that who they are and what they're becoming, who they are and what they do has no reflection of your ex. So you can't blame them for anything that your ex has caused you, which is something that we oftentimes do. And that's what normally happens is we end up not healing during our separation season. We don't cope the right way. We just ignore it enough to believe that we think that we're healed until we get into another relationship and we end up bleeding on a person who never cut us. And that, my dear friends, is not what I want from you. I don't want that to be your experience. I want you to begin to cope the right way and heal the right way and repair your own relationship with yourself the right way so that you validate and understand that who they are, this new partner, this new dating partnership that you've got going on or that you want to have going on. You cannot bring your past into your present, meaning you can't hold them hostage and you can't shadow yourself. You can't shallow yourself. You can't hold back your love just because somebody else hurt you. That's not fair to them. So if you feel like you're going to hold yourself back from being in a healthy, open relationship with them, then I would recommend that you're not ready to get back into that dating space yet, and that you should spend a little bit more time working on yourself, because ultimately you need you, and you need to make sure that you have you taken care of so that you can open yourself back up and take care of them. So great question. The second question I want to talk about today is the no contact rule and when you have a child together. So this person asked, when I have kids with my ex, how do I practice the no contact rule? This is a great commonly asked question. And ultimately, it's very hard for us to practice the no contact rule. The no contact rule is designed for two things. We've heard them both. And one way is to help you get your ex back, because people believe that in the separation season and you do no contact, that they will miss what they no longer have, which partially that is true, but there's something that you need to stay focused in on as you go through that separation season. In that separation season, you need to take care of yourself. You can't just sit there and wait for yourself or wait for your ex to come back to you so that you can finally be happy. When you understand that you're not happy when you're not with your ex, what that indicates is that you're not doing enough in order to take care of yourself. So I ask that you recognize, are you happy without them? And if you're not, then that's a call that you have to make to yourself to be like, hey, I've got to double down and take care of me. Now, let me answer the question more directly. The no contact rule is designed to help you to create the time and the space needed in order for you to begin to enjoy and cope the right way. Enjoy your coping, enjoy your healing, and help you to cope the correct way. And ultimately, when you have kids, it becomes such a challenge. Like, what are you supposed to do when you have kids with your ex and you're struggling to, get over your ex because you have to see them, you have to talk to them, you're trying to figure out what to say, what not to say, what to ask, what not to ask. Well, here's the best thing that you need to understand is you got to practice the reduced contact. And simply put this way is, I know you can't practice the no contact rule because simply put, you have kids with them and you need to be in contact with them about the kids. But the relationship should be wrapped around keeping it kid friendly. The conversations that you have with your ex should be about your kids, maybe about the finances that you still have tied together, and maybe about anything legally that's currently going on. But outside of that, you should not be tapping into their personal lives. You should give your ex the time and space needed in order to heal, for maybe you guys to begin to get back together. Because here's what you don't want to have happen is that you bombard them in their life. You bombard them with a bunch of questions. You bombard them with getting to, asking them what they're doing, who they're with, why they're with them, yada, yada, yada. And then what happens is they get really annoyed with you, which lowers your chances of getting back with your family and getting back together with your partner. So, during this season of the no contact rule, I ask that if you have kids to practice the reduced contact rule, which is simply keep it business related and only talk about the very things that you two are still bonded by, meaning basically just the kids. Everything else can be let go of. It's not your responsibility to endure those conversations, to have those conversations, to sit with those conversations. So that's a great question there. No contact rule, and how do you practice it when you have kids? Let's see. How can you deal when you see your ex with another person? This is what that question is. So how can you begin to deal with the negative emotions when you see your ex with another person? This is a great question. So when you think about seeing your ex with someone, or that your ex is talking to someone, that is a real clear sign that they don't want to be with you. And that is a moment for you to just be like, I am ready to move on. That is a moment for you to be like, hey, I got everything that I needed to realize that they don't want to be with me and I'm not their first choice. And now it's time for me to move on. I would use this moment as motivation, anger motivation. Anger can be a great emotion to help you to begin to move on. And it's like, listen, if your ex is choosing someone else and you're hearing them that they are talking to someone else, or they're pursuing someone else, or they're with someone else, I remember the rage and the anger I used to feel, the amount of disempowerment I would feel just because, my ex was with somebody else. And I was like, how could they? Why would they? This isn't fair. This isn't right. They should be with me. I should be with them. Those stories. And they're all valid stories, but hear me out. It's like, what more do you actually freaking need in order to move on? Like, your ex is pursuing someone else. How do you deal with it? Well, you do so. When you say deal, how do you accept? You in order to deal, you must accept. You cannot deny what it is that you're going through. You must see the reality as it is and not deny your reality. Don't try to say like, well, I should be with them, they shouldn't be with them, yada yada. No, it's like, I see my reality as this. My ex is with somebody else. That makes me not have the ability to get back together with them. That means that they don't want me right now. Speak your truth. Speak from a place of truth and real reality, because a lot of times we like to exaggerate our reality. We like making situations a lot worse than they truly are. A lot of times we like to cause more of our own suffering. And realistically, if I found out that, my ex was with someone at the heat of our breakup, it's like, I don't think I need more. I don't need anything more than just to walk away. But I know that's easier said than done, because you have yet to build that relationship with yourself. And that's why I'm saying you've got to double down and build that relationship with yourself. Like, listen, I respect myself enough. I love myself enough to not put up with the bullshit and the chaos and the heartbreak and the frustration and the confusion and the manipulation. I'm just like, I'm tired of it. Like, I don't put myself through that. Like, I don't allow myself to experience that. So I don't want someone else to make me feel that way. Right? So it's like, I now know that I would just walk away, but who I was as a broken individual, I would continue to try to pursue my ex. But how I would tell you to deal with it now is I would tell you that you have to accept the true reality as it is and don't make it any worse than it is. And then just understand that is your write-off to be like, hey, it's my time to move on. Now I got to double down and take care of me. So I think right now we're at about 10 minutes deep into this. I hope that you're finding this podcast episode helpful, encouraging, and supportive. And if you are, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to the podcast at. I would like to answer a couple more questions that I'm going to read off here. So stick with me to the end as we continue to uncover some of these commonly asked questions. So another question that I got was, how do I move on without thinking about her every single day? Well, in order to understand how do you begin to move on without thinking about her every single day is there's a couple things here. And this is what my course teaches. This is my powerful course that teaches you exactly how to move through emotion, move through thought, eliminate the negative emotion and the backstories that are causing you to stay stuck in your own heartbreak. This is the same course that helps you to rebuild back a relationship with yourself. This is the same course that helps you to build a hope-filled future. So let me tell you about how you begin to move on from anything. I don't care if it's a negative thought. I don't care if it's a person. I don't care if it's a memory, an emotion. How do you begin to move away from something? Well, you got to understand is when you ask, how do I move on? You need to understand where you're at and then where you're going. Most of the time you don't know where you're at. You just know that it's a very fuzzy vision, and then you never know where you're going because you haven't created a different future. In order to move on from one thing, you have to have something else to move on toward, meaning that you have to create a new hope-filled future. You need to have to create a new hope-filled positive thought within your own mind. Okay, so like think about it. How do you get from point A to point B? Well, you got to understand where point B is at. Like, what's your destination? What are you trying to achieve here? And if you don't have that figured out, it's going to be really hard for you to move on at all. So what you need to do is, like, if you want to begin to move on from a negative thought, first you got to understand where a negative thought comes from, or a thought in general. So when I talk to my clients about how do thoughts develop and how do we stop obsessively thinking about our ex, or how do we stop obsessively thinking of all these negative thoughts of, bad health, bad finances, bad relationships. Well, here's kind of what I have realized and learned in my own life is like, where does a thought come from? Well, a thought in my eyes stems from questions. Questions dictate thoughts, thoughts dictate answers, answers dictate an emotion. So here's what happens. When we are constantly obsessively thinking about our ex every single day of our lives, where that begins is with a question, right? We oftentimes ask ourselves poor quality questions, which lead to a poor quality thought, which lead to a poor quality emotion, which leads to over and over of thinking. So let's start here. How do I move on without thinking about her every single day? Well, you got to first understand how you stop thinking about her. Well, a thought basically comes from a question. So you got to ask yourself, what question am I asking that's making me think about her? Is it simply, what is she doing? Or what should I be doing instead of what I am doing? Maybe you're being like, I know I shouldn't be actually sitting here alone right now. Maybe that's the thought. The question, you might be asking yourself is, why me? You might be asking yourself, How come? Maybe you're asking yourself, where is she? Maybe you're asking yourself, who are they with? All of these questions will make you think of them, right? Because they're questions designed to think of them. If you want to think a different thought, you need to ask yourself a different question. So the different question might be, how can I feel better today? Well, if I ask you a question, for example, let me take you through a quick exercise here. If I were to ask you a question such as, tell me about the last holiday that you had the most fun with. Can you think about that moment? Was it Thanksgiving? Was it Christmas? Was it the 4th of July? What holiday did you just experience that seemed to be the most fun to you? Or when was there a time in your life where you felt the most happiest? So when I ask you that question, ultimately your thoughts begin to think about the last time you felt happy, or the last holiday that you were with your family or friends with that you enjoyed. And in that moment, you were actually probably not thinking about your ex. And then you're probably like, oh, well, Tyler, my ex was involved. Well, that's okay. If I told you to think of anything else, think of a blue bike. Did you think of it? Yeah. See, well, in that moment of thinking about the blue bike, you're no longer thinking about your ex. So you can control your thoughts, but you can control your thoughts only by asking yourself questions. And so what I'm asking you to do is every time that you think of your ex that's causing you to feel frustrated, annoyed, angered, upset, sad, alone, depressed, I need you to use that as a trigger. And then I need you to ask yourself a more empowering question that will lead you toward the future that you want. So the two things that you need to do when it comes to moving on is create a future that you're excited to move toward. And secondly, start asking yourself more empowered questions that will give you a more empowered thought, which will lead to a more empowered emotion. And let's see, let's do one more question here. Let's see here. There's a lot of good questions here. What makes you lose value in your ex's eyes? Still think of them 6 months later. No contact when you have how people can hurt others and act like it's nothing. At what point does no contact get easier? How to move on from the pain of being an option and not chosen. Okay, this is a good question. The question is how to move on from the pain of being an option and not chosen. This is why I love doing what I do. How do you move on from the pain of being an option and not being chosen? Well, you've got to stop waiting for someone else to choose you before you do. If you're struggling with feeling significant, appreciated, loved, valued, respected, it's because you're waiting for someone else to make you feel that way. So what you need to do instead is make sure that what you're trying to receive from them, you're going to give to yourself. And you're going to get a vision for yourself. You're going to try to figure that out yourself. You're going to try to be like, hey, what do I expect them to make? How do I expect them to make me feel? You're going to list out a couple of things. You're going to say, I expect them to make me feel chosen, accepted, loved, appreciated, valued, significant, whole, all of those things. And then you're going to be like, okay, well, now that I've identified what I expected them to make me feel, what can I expect from myself to make me feel? Now, the job is to get a plan for yourself, to come up with a plan that helps you to bridge the gap between waiting for someone else to make you feel that way and making yourself feel that way. The goal is understanding how you want to feel and then be the source of that emotion that you want to feel yourself. So you have to create your own personal plan. How are you going to feel more loved, appreciated, valued, significant, grateful, honored, whole, irreplaceable? How are you going to start making yourself feel that way? Some of you might turn to God. Some of you might turn to books. Some of you might turn to self-growth and personal development. Some of you might turn to writing, singing, coaching. There's other ways for you to feel those things, but you've got to come up with the actionable steps that can help you make you feel more chosen. And being an option is a sad feeling. It's lonely. It's heartbreaking, and it's not something that many of us want to experience on our own. But ultimately, if you don't choose you, then you might always feel like a second option. Because here's the truth, is most people, if not everybody, puts themselves before someone else. whether you want to believe that or not. Even my wife would probably put herself before me. Like, her own opinions are more important than my opinions. I promise you that. Like, her beliefs are more important than my own personal beliefs. I'm sure of that. Now, I want to say that in a heartfelt way, meaning that although we get along and we love and we care and we respect each other, the idea here is that, have you ever got yourself into a fight before where their opinion is, no matter what you say or what proof you have, their opinion matters most? Well, it's because most people put themselves on a pedestal above everyone else, that they are their own God, or they are their own world, and you're just an object in it. And can you serve them or not? So, my dear friends, if you want to begin to become an option, or become the chosen one, you have to begin to choose yourself. That's my answer to your questions today. If you've enjoyed this episode, let me know. Leave a review or write at me on Instagram at Tylerjoestratton to kind of let me know if you like this Q&A, because ultimately I would love to answer more of your questions that you have. Just write over to me over at my Instagram at Tylerjoestratton, and I'll be sure to start doing this on a more regular monthly basis, maybe to answer your most pressing questions. If you're not a part of the Happy Heart Academy Inner Circle, I highly recommend you join. It's for a low subscription cost of $4.99 per month right now. But once again, you can ask me any question there, and I'll be sure to get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, depending on how many people ask the question. But my dear friend, my name is Tylerjoestratton, and this is Honey, I'm Home.